Welcome to A Story in True Form. We're so glad you've pulled up a seat with us for a very special Friendsgiving themed conversation, a seat at the table, creating space for true connections. As always, this space is about truth, light, and love.
Yes, and today the conversation will not just be about a conversation, but connection, real, heartfelt connection.
Good. I'm so
Yeah.
excited. For those who may be new here, I'm Lapraya, the founder of A Story by Lapraya, a communications firm that's rooted in storytelling, creating memorable experiences, and providing creative direction for passion projects. Overall, I help mission driven brands find their voice. And tonight, I get to sit at this table and
Yeah.
share my own.
Yes. And I am Tracy Barbee, the owner, founder of True Form. And True Form is not about fixing. It's not about uh, fixing anyone. It's not about someone being broken, but people being whole. True Form is not about just this life coaching, but identity, because I find that a lot of people are stuck with who am I? What is my purpose? So helping people connect to their true selves and helping them remember who they are. So that is True Form. And tonight we are here to speak with truth. And when it comes to connecting with one another during this Friendsgiving season. Yeah.
Yeah. Tracy, you and I, we kind of came together under this new name, A Story in True Form, to head this conversation because that's exactly what we're doing. We're sharing our stories and we're doing it authentically. Together here on this platform, we hold space for conversations that move people toward clarity, connection,
Mhm.
and of course, alignment. So,
Yes.
like we
Yes.
usually do. We begin with a check-in. We know that that's
Hmm.
super important in friendships and maintaining relationships. And how we do it here is using the rosebud thorn method.
Yes.
And so your
Yeah.
rose, as we're kind of sharing, we want you to kind of think about your own. But your rose is what's blooming, your thorn is what's challenging you, and your bud is what you're hoping for or moving
Mm.
toward.
Yeah. Um, So while people are thinking about their blooming or their thorn or their bud, drop a comment, what you are blooming, what's coming up, what's new for you, what is a thorn, something challenging for you. Drop that comment in the comments section, or what's budding, you know what you're wanting to see. And I'm going to go ahead while you're doing that. I'm going to talk to you about mine, and mine is what's blooming is Fountain Within. We've changed our names from Fountain of Hope to the Fountain Within because, as I've said, the prayer that what everybody needs is within them.
Yes.
And so the fountain is within you. So the new name is the Fountain Within. But that is not the only thing blooming with that. Elements of health and I have decided to come together and connect, right? And so, what that looks like is on December 10th, we will be sharing a space together where mind, body, and soul will be together. And so, Elements of Health, they do massage, they do acupuncture, they do all kind of body wellness. And so, that plus the mind, it is the vision that I've had for a long time as it relates to the community coming together, partnering together, where people could come and everything is kind of under one roof, right?
Yeah.
Uh, thorn, thorn in my side.
Tracy,
Okay.
real quick, just for
Yeah.
those who don't know, Fountain of
Mhm.
Hope, Fountain Within, what do you do there as opposed to True Form?
The difference is the fountain within, we do therapy, mental health.
Yeah.
And so we have LPCs, we have MFTs, we have some residents. We offer free counseling. So for the mental health, anybody experiencing anxiety or depression or just want to sit and talk,
Yeah.
um, because they feel like they're out of alignment or something is going on with them internally. So
Yeah.
it's from a mental health standpoint. Although True Form still does that in some aspects, but it's more freer to talk about a lot of different things as well. Um, so that is the difference between True Form and the Fountain Within.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, yeah, and then What the thorn?
The
Let's
thorn.
see, the thorn, the thorn. Ah, yeah, yeah. Lapraya, I talked to you about this earlier, and it's not being understood.
Mm-hmm.
um, when you're in a space where you're communicating and you think you're communicating everything that needs to be communicated, but you're not being understood, you're not
Yeah.
being heard. And that's because somebody already has a different perspective. And I find that more challenging with my spouse, with my children, more so recently,
Yeah.
and it could be because where I am, I'm
Mhm.
doing a lot of different things, and so I'm not putting it on them, but I'm doing a lot of different things. And what I find is when I'm moving differently, they haven't caught up to how I'm moving. And so they're not understanding where I am, and that's on me. So that could be frustrating. Budding. I am wanting in 2026 to take a trip every single month, like
Mm.
once a day. I mean, one day out of the week,
Yeah.
um, or a weekend. I want to do something different. So I'm working on that, and someone, my um, office receptionist, she said to me, "Oh, I really want to do a trip at the end of the month. The last holiday is her favorite movie, one of her favorite movies." And so I was like, "Oh, the last holiday. La Brea, we got to go somewhere to
Yes.
celebrate the last holiday of the year." So um, that's budding because I'm trying to figure out what we're going to be doing. Yeah, so those are mine. What's yours, La Brea?
So those are all good, and it's nice
Mhm.
to check in with a friend, I think, this way
Yeah, yeah.
because it opens the door for the good. It opens the door
Mhm.
for kinda like your in between, and then it opens the door for the challenge and allows us an opportunity to, A, celebrate something together,
Yeah.
know what's ahead and what's in the works, so we can support, and then with the thorn, hopefully, if you can offer some type of solution and
Hmm.
or continue to be there as support or at least lead them in the right direction for who can help with that issue. So it
Hmm.
provides space for like a well-rounded check in and catch up, as I like to call. But to go
Yeah.
back, we are sharing the rose, your bud, and your thorn. If you can drop those in the comments. My
Mhm.
rose is my grandmother recently was diagnosed with colon cancer. Um,
Yeah.
and while she's progressing very well after her surgery. I would say that out of the situation, it brought to my attention, health and the importance of good health and the blessing that it is to have family and friends who are in good health. And of course, even myself. But even
Yeah.
with watching her, navigate that new space and with the checkups and then finding out about the surgery and even getting on the other side of the surgery, I was able to watch her walk in faith in a different way. And she did it with a lot of grace. She kept good spirits and she leaned on God heavily during that time. And so to see her, who by the way is the one who introduced me um, to getting back into a good relationship with God many, many years ago. To see her in this space and to watch her walk in it the way that she did
Mm.
was a blessing to me.
Mm.
Given
Yeah.
such a terrible situation, I would say that she was um, the circumstances were the best that they could possibly be for her being,
Mm.
in that health condition. And even looking ahead, she won't have to do chemo or radiation or
Mm.
any of that
Yeah.
as of from what we can see. And so
Yeah.
I'm super grateful to have that reminder and to see and walk with her through this time. Um,
Yeah.
that's a rose for sure. We have to, be
Yes.
grateful for good health because, you could be fine today and find out something,
Facts.
is going on in the background later. So definitely
Fact.
grateful there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. My
Your
thorn
thorn.
would be making plans and things not going as planned. Girl,
Mm.
having patience, in that time of, you have checked all the boxes, you have,
Yeah.
put things in order, made arrangements, and then you
Mm.
find out that, especially when it's something that's been months in the coming, um, it's frustrating. It's frustrating, and in a different place in my life, it probably would have had me reaching for things outside of me, just to get through the waiting period. But that brings me to my bud, which is many situations in my life as of late is really showing me faith and what it really means to say that you're walking in faith and not by sight. And so, although plans did not go as my husband and I had hoped, we are having to redirect and lean back into God on, okay, we thought we were making the right moves, but you apparently have a different plan. It wasn't meant to be. And so, trusting that better is to come, but doing it in the right mindset, and doing it in a space of love, as opposed to being
Yeah.
frustrated or angry because you didn't get what you want. If we believe that his plan is better, and that it's going to, nothing is wasted, as I like to say, then we have to walk in that and believe that, and continue to live and be patient, and,
Mm.
and that's all you can do. So
That's it. That is it. Those are good things. And so I can't wait to read the comments and seeing what you've put in the comments. And so, yeah, all good stuff, Lapraya, all good stuff.
yeah.
So let's get into this seat at the table.
Yes, yes, yes.
Um, yeah, this Friendsgiving and what that looks like. What are your thoughts, Lapraya?
Well, I know that overall, you and I, when we were talking about, what's on our hearts, for me, it felt like the perfect time to talk about what it means to create space for true connection, not surface
Yeah,
level,
yeah,
not performative,
yeah,
but just really connecting and ensuring that the spaces that we're creating in our relationships feel more like home.
yeah.
And what we kind of, when we thought about what does that mean, we talked about grace, we talked about presence, being honest, and
Yeah,
what brings all of this together is the courage to be seen.
yeah.
For us, equates to that authenticity that true form promotes, and that a story
Mhm.
promotes, when we say share of yourself and
Mm,
return to center.
yeah. And so when you were talking, I was thinking, Lapraya, that a lot of people move out of obligation, out of guilt, or old expectations. Um, and when that happens, uh, I know for me, when I do that, I'm not showing up as my true self, right? And so today, it's about friendship, rooted in alignment and not pressure.
Yeah.
It's about the connection that feels real, that feels grounded and nourishing. And so you started off with talking about grace, and that is the first topic. And when I think about grace, for me, grace is space, right? Giving people the space to show up in their true as their true selves, and wherever they are. That's
Yeah.
what that is, whether they're tired, whether they're unsure, whether they are quiet, giving them that space to show up as who they are. And I know recently I had a moment with someone, a friend, right? And in that, I hurt her. Now,
Mm.
I didn't realize that I hurt her. Because usually we kind of joke and all of this other stuff, and in that, I apologized. I apologized once, and then there was something else that I had done wrong in that moment, and she told me, and I apologized again for whatever that was. And I kept apologizing. And then at some point, Lapraya, I had to stop, and I reflected on that moment. And what I realized was she told me something I said that hurt her, but then I thought about it. I apologized and it was sincere. But what I also understood is every apology brought up another layer for her. And in that moment, grace was not about fixing it because my apology and trying to say and explain, I was trying to fix it. But grace
Yeah.
is not about fixing it. Grace was about allowing her to be where she was
Mm,
in that moment. That's what grace should have been. Allowing her to be who she was and letting myself align without taking her entire emotional story.
yeah.
Meaning, whatever she was going through, whatever she wasn't, she said she was fine, but I had began to take on that emotional story of hers.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't on me to do. So Grace said, you don't have to perform. And I was trying to perform. You know how when you're apologizing to someone and you're trying to explain and all of that, at this point, it's like, can't do anything. So I'm performing,
Yeah.
right? And so Grace says you don't have to perform. And that's what keeps friendships breathable instead of suffocating. And so in that moment, we are friends, um, and I was able to begin to breathe.
Yeah.
Because when I kept trying to explain, I was suffocating.
Mm,
I was not breathing. I was trying to, like, no, but no. And I started suffocating. So grace is giving people space to be where they are
yeah.
and not take on their emotional story.
Yeah. And
So,
in that,
mm-hmm,
in that you had to give yourself grace too.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So, when we think about these our relationships, I think oftentimes we're thinking about the other person,
mm-hmm,
and that's love, right? But love is also and love and friendship and relationship and those things together is also having a good relationship with self enough to say, I make mistakes too. You did something
mm-hmm.
unintentionally that caused someone pain. Knowing you, I don't believe you did that, on purpose. But
Yeah,
when we talk about friendship and grace, when we give our own selves grace, we're able to take a step back and to your point and say, okay, I didn't mean this. I don't have
yeah,
to hold on to this because what happens when I
yeah,
hold on to this? That doesn't
yeah,
make space for you to hear her,
yeah,
to hear that, I didn't mean that, but somebody was still hurt, and
yeah.
so the grace says, I'm not perfect either. I make mistakes and I do things unintentionally. We do things out of love that isn't always received that way.
Hmm. What I've come to learn is this. Sometimes the energy that you put out there, so the energy that I had when I put it out there didn't land
Mm,
that way for her.
yep. I love that.
So even though I put out the energy,
Mhm.
playful, joking, it didn't land that way for her.
Yeah.
And so I have to understand sometimes when you're not intentionally doing anything, it can land differently for someone else. But then do I take it on because
Yeah.
it landed differently for them? I know my motives, I know my heart.
Right.
You
Right.
know, I
Mhm.
understood. And sometimes there's something going on a deeper level that people don't even realize that they're going through. They're
Yeah.
so numb that they only hear or feel the surface. But sometimes when somebody, you know how you're saying, "Hey, how are you?" and they be like, "Fine," and you're
Yeah.
like, "What's wrong with you?" It landed different, but there was something else going on with that person underneath all of the surface stuff. And we do this a lot. We go through the day, we push through the day,
Mhm.
a lot of stuff, and we're stuffing and we're stuffing and we're stuffing, and we don't realize that we are. We think we're not. And so Grace says, uh, as you said, for yourself, make sure you're not performing, you're not suffocating, but understanding giving grace to someone else too, and
Yeah.
understanding where they are. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
as we talk about grace, for me, grace is when I think of words that go with it, I think about acceptance. For
Mm,
me, grace is a safe space. Grace says, I see you. I
mm,
love you. I'm here. Grace says, I know you. Um,
yeah.
Grace says, your mistakes are not who you are. And overall, I believe grace, and from my own experiences, grace makes room for you to remember who you are.
Mhm.
Um, and for me, there was a season recently with you, Tracy, where I didn't show up fully, how I intended to. We're in the thick of inner shift, being your
Yeah.
first retreat, your first wellness
Mhm.
retreat through True Form. Um,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be present for you the way that you've always shown up for me and been present for me. But I found myself in a situation and in a headspace that I just wasn't my best.
Yeah.
I felt stretched thin. I didn't feel confident in myself. And it literally was just like a domino effect from there.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
as we approached the event, and then the event came and passed, I felt my internally, I felt the weight of my absence and not showing up the way I wanted to.
Yeah.
I felt the disappointment of not following through. And, all my little voice, my internal voice was saying is, you should have done more, you should have done more. And it's like a record on repeat, right?
Mhm.
And so, I had to do something that's hard for me, and that was to have a conversation with you. We couldn't, ignore it.
Mhm.
You gave
Yeah.
me space and time to process, and you waited for me to come to you essentially. And, you extended your hand for a conversation. And I accepted. And in that moment, I realized the only thing I can do here is to be, honest and truthful.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't hide behind, my fear of how you would receive the truth. I just
Mhm.
had to face,
Yeah.
without any excuses, and just do something else that's uncomfortable for me. And that was just to be vulnerable and share myself and my weaknesses in that moment.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and for
And
me, I'm sorry.
no, no, no. I was just thinking when you were saying that, if anybody has ever felt or thought, had that where they're thinking they're supposed to show up for someone and they're disappointing that other person, um, drop a heart so we know that we're not alone in that. Drop a heart in the comments if you have been in that space where you feel like you didn't show up for someone. Um, and Lapraya, you were talking, and I'm sorry I interrupted.
Oh no.
Um, but I was sitting here thinking, all of that stuff that you were talking about, I was like, I wanted her to just come and be and not to just perform
Yeah.
because I felt like you needed to just be and not do, right? Um, but when you're so used to doing,
Hmm.
and then the other thing is this, um, this is your passion.
Yeah.
So I was asking you not to do what you enjoy doing. Yeah.
Yes.
So initially I was just like, no, don't do it. I just want you to come and be. And so, yeah, if you ever have been in a space where that's where you've been, drop a heart in the comments where you're thinking you're showing up for someone
Yeah.
and you're not showing up for someone and you're disappointing yourself in that moment. Um, but remember, grace softens the moment.
Yes.
Yeah. Grace removes pressure. So that's why, Lapraya, you and I were able to have the conversation because there was no pressure there.
There was no pressure, and what I learned in just the long discussion that we had, was just the fact that I didn't have to do anything to,
No.
like, you know, I guess it would be to earn like your trust back, or
Mm,
to get back in good standing, I guess we can call
yeah.
it. It was just
Yeah.
everything
You
that I
didn't
thought it was going to be, like, it was not.
yeah, you didn't have to perform, right? You
Mhm.
didn't have to
Mhm.
perform. So, yeah, grace softens the moment. Grace removes pressure. And grace is the soil where real connection grows. And that is what's been happening for us,
Yeah.
right? Granting each other grace. We had to do that even today.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So if you all, this is probably a good moment for you to kind of pause, and throughout the conversation, we want you to reflect, because this is
Yes.
not just about us sharing our stories. and our reflections, but for this to hopefully encourage you to kind of do the same and think about some of
Mhm.
these things. So if you would, this is a good opportunity for you to pause and just kind of ask yourself, and think of someone you love. Where could grace soften the moment instead of
Mm,
expectation?
mm,
Where could grace soften the moment instead of expectation? And
yeah,
where could you offer that same grace to yourself?
yeah, that's good, Lapraya. I'll take a moment to breathe on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So important to ask ourselves these questions. We want you
Mhm.
to receive, but to also put yourself out there as well, even if it's just for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
So we
that
get into the presence,
yeah.
right? Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about presence. We've already covered grace, which is so important, but then that brings us to something that I believe is very, very underrated,
Mm-hmm.
presence. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
it's the moment you actually arrive emotionally, you're there spiritually, mentally. And when I think about, you know, presence, Tracy, it brings me to you and how you help so many people,
Yeah,
through Fountain Within, through True Form. You help people feel seen. So
yeah.
while we're here, I want you to kind of share, where do you most feel seen?
Uh, I have a counselor, a spiritual practitioner, Lapraya, and I see her every 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, and where I feel most seen is with her.
Mm,
She's not trying to fix me. She does. She will redirect me, and that redirection looks like, Tracy, you sure you want to say that? You sure you mean that?
yeah.
Uh, she just simply receives me as me. She reminds me who I am. And it was so funny, Lapraya, earlier you said we're not perfect, and she reminds me that we are.
Mm,
Yeah, so, and I believe that I am perfect. I hear people say that all the time. Um, but because of what I believe and the creator who created me, he said everything
mhm.
that I've created is perfect.
Yeah.
And so we've been taught that we are not.
Mhm.
And so that's what true form believes, that you are perfect. You're not broken. You don't need fixing. That you're whole, but life happens to you. And as life happens, you begin to take on a different identity than the
Mm,
identity that you were created to have.
yeah.
And so, her, when I meet with her, her presence just allows me to be unpolished, unfolding version of myself. And we have a wonderful friendship. And I believe presence is everything. And it allows me when I'm, to stop rushing ahead of myself, and actually settle into the moment. That's what presence is for me. It reminds me to stop running outside of my body. It's when I breathe. And we had to take a couple of minutes today to just
Yeah.
breathe right before this, right? Um, so that I can show up
Mhm.
as the not an old version of me and not a version of what others expect of me, but just to show up as me.
Yeah.
Um, and so recently, I had two plans, right? And I had to show up, but I initiated the plans, LaPrea, and I didn't show up for the plans, but I called. I called and I said, "Oh, I'm not going to be able to make those plans," right? And so presence for me, when I had to call that friend that day,
Yeah.
said, presence is not feeling guilt. It's canceling without the guilt.
Yeah.
It means honoring my truth in that moment. Um, and real friends don't want a forced version of me.
Yeah.
They want the true me. And so being honest with myself, that is presence for me, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's huge. That's huge because we have been taught, your word is your bond. And, it's this big thing for people to change their mind
Yes,
or to
yes,
check in with self and say, I don't have it today. We talk about, relationships and friendships. We should be able to be honest with each other.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, if we're operating from a space of grace, that is why grace is important, because it allows the person who the plans were canceled on to be able to say, okay, she don't have
Mm-hmm.
it today.
Yeah.
Can we do this another time?
Right.
When else are you available?
You're right.
know?
Right.
And I think we are shamed so much for canceling, because if I said this 2 weeks ago, the circumstances and things have changed since two
Yes.
weeks ago. So do we ignore that? Is it
Yeah.
is it by any means necessary all the time? Is that what
Mhm.
friendship is? I don't think that's what friendship is.
It's not. It's not at all. It's not at all. So presents for you, Lapraya. What is that?
So presents for me, the first thing that my mind goes to as of late with presents, outside of taking my moments of meditation in the morning, would be,
Mhm.
when I'm in the thick of my day. I've picked up my kids from school. We're having lunch. We're doing our after school routine,
Mhm.
and oftentimes when I'm in that space, I
Mhm.
may not have shut off my work. Work may still be playing in the background, as the
Yeah.
theme music, and,
Yep.
ideas may be flowing. I haven't shut it off. I haven't brought myself to where I am now,
Mm.
which is,
Mm.
time with my kids. And so I was in one of those spaces just the other day. I mean, the ideas were just flowing. And so my daughter, she comes and she has this amazing story to tell me about her day. She reminded me first off that I didn't ask her about her day. She's like, I got in the car and you didn't even ask me about my day. So I guess she was waiting to give me grace and opportunity to make that correction. I didn't catch the hint. And so she's like, you didn't. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. And
Is
so
that
I'm
my
still,
is that my winter?
this is autumn breeze.
Oh, this is autumn. Okay.
This is autumn breeze. On another day, that could very well be winter. And so, she's talking, and I've yet to break my gaze at my computer. I'm just trying to get the thoughts out so I can focus on where I am.
Yeah.
And she's telling the story, and I'm routinely just like, yep, yep. I'm not listening to anything. And so she's like, Mommy. And I'm like, Yes, and she's like, You're not even listening to me. Are you listening? And I'm like, Excuse me, ma'am. And I in that moment, she snapped me back to where I was, to realize that I was on autopilot with her. And I wasn't being very, respectful to her, because she had something to tell me. And so when I think about presence in her, she's 9 years old. In that moment, she was aware
Mhm.
that mommy's not here. Mommy is
Yeah.
doing all the things. I'm nodding my head. I'm saying, I'm giving the cues that I'm listening, but she's aware enough to recognize active listening. And when, she was being ignored. And that is where, for me, presence is so important, to not
Mhm.
miss those moments of allowing somebody to be seen, allowing someone to be heard, giving them your full on attention. Because the more and more technology, I believe, takes over, we are programming our brains to what we call multitask, even though it's not feasible for me to be writing out my thoughts and listening and receiving information from someone else.
Mm. Yeah.
It just doesn't
Yes.
work that way.
Yeah.
So presence for me is stopping, being where you are, and understanding that there's a time and place. I could very well get those same ideas out later. I
Mm.
didn't have to do it right then and there and miss the
True.
moment of connecting with my children. So,
True. True. Mm. So that brings us to honesty, huh? Yeah.
mhm.
So being present, and even right now, some of you might not even be fully present, listening to this because other things are, trying to get your attention, distracting you, and things like that. And
That's
so,
a good place,
uh,
Tracy, for us to ask a question, if you don't mind.
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Because you're right. Most of us do struggle with that. And in order to address the issue, we got to kind of accept it as so. And so, my question to you all, is where do you struggle to be present, and how would the moment shift if you slowed down and arrived
Mm,
fully? And that's an
mm,
intentional practice. I know for me, it is an intentional practice to slow myself down and be where I am.
present.
Um,
Yeah.
but it starts with you acknowledging where you are now with it. And so, again, ask yourself, where do you struggle to be present? And how would the moment shift if you slowed down and arrived fully?
Mm. Let's just pause right there. See, I had to come present.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, I was thinking, I was like, oh, where's there's other places, but I'm
Mhm.
here. Yeah. So, that moves us to honesty.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Honesty and true connections in this Friendsgiving time period and all of that other stuff. And Lapraya, honesty has evolved for me during this season, right? Um, I've been looking at it and say, my word has been updated. Yeah.
You say that a lot.
Uh, yes, my word has been updated. The old version of me, um, like you mentioned earlier, my word is my bond, right? And that was a old version of me, meaning I still believe my word is my bond. Um, and I think it gave me integrity having that. Um, it gave me structure. But when I look at that right now, commitment, uh, but even my spirit shifted with that thought process because that's a belief that I have. And the I've evolved. So the new me, who I was like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, this new me has a new way of thinking about that because now sometimes it makes me rigid.
Hmm.
Because if I say something, I'm like, nope, I said it, I got to do it. This is what it is. And I'm looking at it, my body must co-sign my yes. And in that moment, my
Yeah.
body is not co-signing that yes. My soul, the prayer must agree with my commitments.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm learning that my past cannot co-sign today's truth.
Mm.
And so because it cannot, uh, honesty has been able to show up in my marriage recently because of that. The inner shift, and you mentioned it earlier. October 11th, my husband, we were supposed to go on a 10-day meditation retreat together. And he didn't end up going, but he was going to go to, he's an alpha, and his line brothers were celebrating their 35th anniversary. And he was going up to our alma mater, HBCU Central State University in Ohio. He was going to go to homecoming. But because he didn't do the meditation, he decided not to go to the homecoming.
Yeah.
And in that moment, um, he said, well, I love you. And so that was one of the reasons why he wasn't going. And I was like, no, that's not true. You didn't go because you felt guilty. And
Mm.
guilt is not love.
Mm.
And so he was like, what? And I said, no. I said, guilt only exists when you believe you have done something wrong.
Mm.
And telling me your truth is not wrong. So when
Mm.
you're able to speak your truth,
Yeah.
that's honesty. And that cleared the air for us. It didn't damage the connection. It just made it more real.
Yeah.
And so honesty is the backbone of friendships. Yeah. Um, and Lapraya, you and I, we do this all the time. We will say, "Are we good? What's wrong? Is anything off? Do we need to clear the air?" And so that is friendship to me. And you recently texted me and you said, I was short because I was doing something in that moment, but I wanted you to know I was responding. And you text me and you said, did I do something or am I just tripping? And I said, oh, you're just tripping. And so A few minutes later, I called you, you know? But that is true
Mm,
friendship. That is honesty. Um, Honesty is why the friendship works.
yeah.
Um, because neither of us are hiding behind polite silence,
Mhm. Say
but
that
we're
part
just,
again.
you and I, we're not hiding behind this polite silence, right? Um, honesty does not push people away.
Mm,
Dishonesty does.
yes. Mhm.
And that's why a lot of friendships end, you
Yeah.
know? So, what is honesty for you?
Y'all will probably notice I oftentimes bring a lot of these stories back to self, uh,
Mm,
because I've come to learn that in relationships, oftentimes in our lives, we grow up starting with the relationship with others.
mm-hmm,
And then I know from my experience, I came back to myself and building, my relationship with myself and how I was treating myself well after marriage, well after, having my kids. And so for me, when I think about honesty, it's alignment.
mm.
And that's why it's so important for you to first be honest with yourself. You trying to tell others what they wanna hear. What do you need to hear, and what is the truth for you?
Mm,
Is the question I don't think we ask ourselves enough. And it's usually under the blinders of we're trying to perform a certain way, or we're trying to show up a certain way instead of just starting with, "Where am I right now? Who
yeah,
am I
yeah,
right now?"
yeah,
And, as we have aspirations to improve and all those things, we have to start there. And you
yeah.
talk about, and as the more and more we speak, my mindset is changing when I think about perfection. I know for me, my honest truth is for a long time I was chasing perfection. And that had me in a space that wasn't comfortable, was exhausting. um I questioned my skills and my abilities and who I was because I was trying to be someone I was not. And so
Mm-hmm,
when you mentioned earlier, the fact that you believe we're already perfect, I'm in a space getting there to
mm-hmm,
where I'm starting to see, what it is that you mean by that.
mm-hmm.
Because if we're having to return to center at some
Yeah,
point in our life, right? If we're having to remember who we are, and I know my personal walk with doing that has brought me to a place where I love myself so much deeper, than I ever have, then maybe you are onto something that it was already there. We just
yeah,
forgot. We forgot it,
yeah.
you
And so
know?
it's just remembering. Yes, you're absolutely right. Um, because there's a difference between being perfect and perfectionist.
Mm,
And so perfectionism is what society says, this is right, this is right, this is
yeah,
right, this is right, and you're trying to do
mhm,
this right thing.
yes.
You're perfect. That is totally different than this, let me do what others have said is the bar or
Yeah,
who have set the bar, whatever that bar looks like, right?
yeah.
So, yeah, two
So
different,
for me, I'm sorry,
yeah, two different
different
things.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you put it in that way, it helps me to even understand what I was doing in that.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, you know, for me, when I think about being honest, it took for me to start exploring myself more. And in exploring myself, I realized that the roles I was trying to play and the way that I was walking in those roles, being a wife, being a mother of three girls, pursuing a career, pursuing entrepreneurship, I realized my truth was I didn't want to be Superwoman. I didn't want to be, this person who I'm striving to cook the perfect meals. I'm striving to keep my house perfectly clean. I'm trying to, deliver, the things that I have to deliver for work. And meanwhile, Lapraya was exhausted. I
Hmm.
wasn't being true to myself. I am a little messy, a lot messy. Okay. I'm messy. Can I work on it? Sure. But trying to be a type A personality will have me crumbling under pressure every time. That is my truth.
Yeah, yes, yes.
And so it took for me to realize that honesty meant I had to first face myself and say, who put this pressure on you in the first place? It was me.
Yeah.
It was me
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
along. And so now this version of me says, I'm going to do my best.
Hmm.
I will do that. I'll honor that. And the best looks different every single day.
It does. It does. I
But
hear you.
I won't
Yeah.
walk in something that's not true to me to please
Hmm.
others.
Yeah. And friendship shouldn't, you shouldn't have to do that, right? And so honesty isn't confrontation,
Mm,
right? Honesty is clarity, and clarity is a form of love.
mm. Yes, I like that.
Yeah. And so, uh, and I think this is what is forming here, when we become more clear with one another and we're honest with one another. Love cannot do anything but do what it does, and that's to love.
Mm,
And
yes.
that is true friendship. Yeah. Mm,
So I challenge you all, because that was very well said, to ask yourself, what truth have you been holding? It wants to be spoken,
mm,
and you can speak it. You can do it gently, you can do it clearly, and you can do all of that with love. But it starts with you being honest with yourself. And so, what truth have
mhm.
you been holding on to that wants to be spoken?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. So, where do we go next, Lapraya? Mm,
Well, that takes us to, and even
mm,
maybe for some of you answering that question, may make you feel nervous. It
mhm,
may make you feel very vulnerable because it
mhm.
is asking you to kind of look within, and that's to bring everything kind of full circle when we're talking about the grace, being present, being honest. Overall, your friendships require, your relationships require for you to have the courage to be seen,
Yeah.
for you to, and for us when we were kind of coming up with the major points for this conversation, that is what brings you to the table. That's how you should show up to every table, is with the courage to be seen. And
Mm,
so that does take vulnerability. It does take courage to show up unpolished. It takes you being present in the moment, and accepting the present version of you.
yeah.
And as Tracy mentioned, that changes, and that's okay. So for you, Tracy, where has that
Mm.
courage shown up for you?
As we talked about it earlier, courage shows up every time I choose the present version of myself over the past version of myself. Because it's easy to get back into that comfort zone of who you are, because you feel safe in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
space, right? So that is courage to operate in who I am today,
yeah.
not yesterday. And a lot of people know me of yesterday.
Mm,
And so when I show up and I say something totally off, and they're like, oh, but this is the new version of Tracy, right? Um, when I'm able to just be honest and open with my counselor, right? And that takes courage. And
it
I would
does.
tell anybody, when you're sitting on a seat or on a table or somebody and you're just giving them everything, that's courage, because you're telling them. It's
Yeah,
like you are filleting yourself, you're exposing yourself.
yeah,
And at that point, someone who's able to make sure by the time that session is over, you're closed back up and you don't leave out filleted. So every time I show up with my counselor, that is courage.
yeah.
My husband, when I was able to say what I needed to say, about, even, no, that's not love, that's guilt. Uh, Somebody before had been like, oh, but he chose you. No, he chose himself because he didn't want to feel guilty.
Mm,
Guilt is not about something else. That's trying to relieve you of something
yeah,
you're feeling,
yeah,
right? Um, and so he was able to hear that and understood all of that. So in that, courage um, is, at the end of the day, when I cancel my plans and spirit agreed with me.
Mm,
That is courage to choose and to be in alignment, even when someone else may not understand it. That's
yeah.
courage. So it's difficult for a lot of people to do that. Because we talked about
Mm,
being honest, and
yeah.
at the same time, now we move into courage. And being honest is being able to have that courageous
Right.
space within you to say, no, yep.
Yeah.
So that is how it shows up for me. What about for you?
For me, I would say I often circle back to my business. In running a business, I've come to learn how much I have to bring me to the table if
Mm,
I'm going to be true to myself, if I'm going to give my clients what they deserve. I have to be true. I have to be authentic, and that for me took courage.
yeah.
I would say, even kind of going back before the business started, I was working at Hampton University. I love, love, love working at my alma mater. I loved the staff, the team. I liked the space that was created where we could be creative. You could bring, all ideas to the table. And in that space was when I was reminded that I had been performing for so long in previous
Mm,
jobs and previous
mm,
spaces. It took coming what felt like back home for
mm,
me to understand that I could be me,
mm,
and so, fast forward, I'm working in this business and for many years still unlearning this way of performing and even down to changing, my voice. At Hampton, they would always laugh when I answered the phone. But that was such a like wake up call to me. It was a joke for them. And I'm like, but I've been talking this way. Why, when I pick up the phone, am I changing how I speak? No idea where that came from.
mm,
But it was something, I needed to let go of and
mm,
get back to myself. And so, fast forward to entrepreneurship, I didn't realize how raw I would feel, walking this path. And to your point, you mentioned alignment and people understanding that, things this journey isn't easy and it's not for everyone.
yeah.
It takes a lot out of you. It takes a lot of commitment, a lot of dedication. But I think for me, the biggest lesson out of it has been the challenge of showing up as me every single time.
Mm,
Not what I think the client wants me to do, but this partnership works because you are Tracy Barbee and I am Lapraya Patterson, and
yeah.
to try to be anybody else is just
It's,
insane.
it's, it's,
It's just insane. And so that for me has been like my biggest, and to the point where walking this has then allowed me to show up as myself in my other spaces
yeah.
as well, in
Mm,
friendship, in marriage, as a mother, as a daughter, sister, you just run down the list of just really understanding that once you've exposed yourself, whether it's, through your creativity, whether it's through sitting on someone's couch, it's really no going back after that. You know the truth
no.
now. You know
Yeah.
your truth now. And
Yeah.
so really, it's really hard to go back, but it starts with you having the courage to face you, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and that leads us to these practical steps. We've went through some of the things that we've talked about. Um, and so before we close, we want to make sure you have some practical steps in what we've talked about. And the first one is before you commit to anything, check your body. If your hands are sweaty, if your heart is beating fast, if your body is a GPS.
Yeah.
People don't realize that. You have a internal knowing. Check in before you commit. So make sure you're aligned first. The other thing is this: practice one honest moment a day where
Mm,
you're just going to be honest. If You like, oh no, that's gonna hurt somebody's feelings. Oh, I don't want to. No, be honest. If you don't want to show up, then say, I don't want to show up. I don't want to go. Practice one honest moment for the day. Um, Offer grace without absorbing someone else's emotional story.
Mm,
Uh, so offer grace. You don't have to fix their stuff. You don't have to perform. Just offer grace without absorbing their emotional story. Um, and I mentioned that earlier. Um, Ask deeper questions that open up real conversations. Lapraya, you're good for this because you'll text and you'll say, okay, what are your thoughts? Give me 10 thoughts that you have for the day. I was like, what?
yeah,
Right
I
this
did. I
moment.
really did.
I was like, no one's ever asked me that before. And then I said I had to think about it because no one had asked me that. And so that was good, Lapreo. You did that. You got to do more of that. I
Yeah.
like it when you do that. Um, let's see. Be present. Lepre, you talked about that with your girls and things like that. I talked about that. Be present for one conversation this week. Just one.
One.
No phones, no rushing, just one conversation if you can. Just be present. Don't think about anything else. Just give that person your time.
Yes.
Um, and then create a small ritual of friends, a weekly check in, a shared meal, a voice note, or something like that. Do that with your friends. Those are some practical steps where you just kind of check in and um, with your friends. You know, a voice note is really cute. It's a cute way to check in. You don't want to have time to pick up the phone and talk, but you want them to know you're thinking about them. So instead of texting, leave a voice note. So um, I don't know, but those are
And I
some
just wanted
practical
to
steps.
circle back,
Yeah.
while you all are jotting down, these great tips that Tracy is sharing, because we
Hmm.
definitely want you to walk away, being able to implement at least something that you gain from
Yeah.
the conversation, that'll
Yeah.
deepen your relationships. So those practical tools, you can always pause the video to jot them down, so that you can make a commitment to yourself, in order to reach out and fully really change things in your relationship. But I wanted to also, while you were doing that, Tracy, I was like, might be a good idea to go back over some of these questions. Because again, the point in these conversations is for you all to have takeaways. And so if I were to just kind of run down some questions or some things that you can kind of think about, where in your life are you craving deeper connection right now? Where in your life are you craving deeper connection right now? Think of someone you love, and then think of where could grace soften the moment instead of expectation, and
Hmm.
where could you offer that same grace to yourself? So think of someone you love, where could grace soften the moment instead of expectation, and
Hmm.
where could you offer that same grace to yourself? Where do you struggle to be present, and how would the moment shift if you slowed down and arrived fully? Where do you struggle to be present, and how would the moment shift if you slowed down and arrived fully?
Hmm.
Last two, what truth have you been holding that wants to be spoken? What truth have you been holding that wants to be spoken? And where are you hiding? And if you let yourself be seen, what might open? Who might you become?
Hmm. Those are all good questions. So those questions, plus the practical tips, friendships, your friendships should even grow just from that. Just just that what we gave,
Yeah.
your friends, even the friends that you have, those connections should just even grow. Um, Even ask them the questions. You
Yeah.
know, it is Friendsgiving, Thanksgiving. Those are good questions to just sit around and ask at the table. Usually you sit around the table and you say what you're grateful for, what you're thankful for. But you can even take one of those questions and put it out there and ask people. You know, it'll bring you even a little closer.
Yeah. I
Or,
love that. Good idea.
yeah. Yeah, or even take the practical step and the practical tips that we gave and um, create a ritual with somebody, a family member that's there and say, hey, we're going to check in once a week or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Um, but I think at the end of the day, um, Friendsgiving, you know, it just is a reminder of that connection isn't accidental.
Mm, yes.
Mhm. It's not accidental. It's created through truth, through
Yes.
grace, and through presence.
And
And
with that,
and I am saying before we even close with that, Lapraya, um, I'm grateful for our Friendsgiving relationship because that what we have and what we spoke about today, it has evolved into all of those things that we talked about today. So
thank
I'm
you.
grateful for you.
And I'm grateful for
Yeah,
you, Tracy. I'm
yeah,
grateful for all the things I learned. I'm grateful for the safe space to be honest. I'm
yeah.
so grateful for the things that you are teaching and showing me through grace. And I want the conversations to continue. You know, they
Yeah,
enlighten me, they allow me to share, and I'm able to receive. And that is what friendship is about.
and uh, just always remember that what you see, you can't see it unless it's in you.
Mm,
I tell people that all the time. That what you see, it is
mm,
in you. Um, and so we're here doing it and giving each other grace in these
yeah,
moments, right? So before we close, stay aligned, stay true, and stay connected.
yeah.